Welcome back to another episode of Why the Fuck Did I Buy a BMW when N54? In the last video you would have seen me stripping the car down after blowing it up at the roadside. So we get the engine, the gearbox all out in one piece. The gearbox gets split with the torque converter, and we started stripping the engine down a wee bit and found metal shavings in the oil filter. In this video we're going to continue stripping it down, getting it down to a bare block, and then it will make it light enough for us to lift it off the subframe and stick it on the engine stand to then get the bottom end stripped and get into the crank and see what mess has been made, because I imagine it's hellish. So let's get the camera set up and get cracked on. Pretty much stripped down bare. We've got the stand bracket on now. The only thing I'm not taking off is the turbos, because the steering rack and whatnot's in the way, so it'll be easier just to take them off with the engine in the stand. So we'll get the crane hooked on. It's a wee bit dodgy the way that I'm planning on lifting this, but it's all I've got to hand, so let's see how we go on. Look at that! We are now fully set up to strip this engine down. Next up, I'm going to take the turbos and whatnot off, and then it will be a bare block. And then we'll just rotate it over, get the sump off of it, just have a look at the crank and strip the bottom end off, and have a look at the crank and see how bad it is. Sump is off, oil pickup tube is off, and the guard, whatever that plate is off. As you've seen, we can now see in. I've rotated the crankshaft round, and 5 out of 6 of the con rods have like lateral movement side to side, and then there's one that has no movement in it whatsoever, and there's a pretty wee surprise in here, so I'll show you what we found. I was expecting on this for me to grab the con rod and shuggle about, but cylinder 5 is absolutely solid, whereas cylinder 2, you can just see the oil squelching out the side of the gap there and there. So all 5 of them have play, but this one's solid. And there's a nice wee surprise for us in there. I was expecting something like that, so that's a good sign. So I'll pull this cap off and have a wee look. Look at that. There's not much left of that. There's a lot of mixed emotions in this video, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm really happy at what I've found. It's looking like the big end bearing has spun on the crankshaft, and it's just absolutely worn away, and there was no play in it side to side because that's been jammed in between the con rod cap and the crankshaft, so that's why it was absolutely solid. Quite tight turning the crank around. Next, I'm going to flip the engine back round, rip the rocker cover off, get the valves out of it. I don't have the timing tool for it yet, but I'm a firm believer of you don't need to time it up until you're rebuilding it. And I'm stripping this engine fully to pieces, so that's why I'm not too fussed about timing it up just now. Before we spin it round, I'll just explain to you, if you can, as you can see there, that is what they call the big end bearing. It's just a piece of metal which closes the gap between the conrod and the crank, and either side of that metal shim or bearing fills with oil, and the oil is what lubricates the crankshaft to the in between them. So that, as you can see as well, it's absolutely chewed up. It's pretty well scored, so it's looking like a full set of shells and a crankshaft at this moment in time. So all we need to do now is, like I said, flip it round, get all the timing undone, get this chain undone, and then yeah, we'll take it from there. Next on the agenda, now that it's all stripped on top, is from what I've seen online, the timing tool kit that you get jams the camshaft in there and in there, and then you can undo the Vanos bolts there. I believe the Vanos is the variable valve timing sprockets. Like I've said in previous videos, I don't really know much about these engines or BMWs, so we're all learning here at the same time. But I think that's the variable valve timing, so I'll just, because I don't have the kit, I'll just get a spanner down, hold the camshaft and break these two bolts off. And then once that's done, I can loosen off that, which is the hydraulic tensioner for the timing chain, and then that should let us get the pulleys off, and then we can head on to stripping the cams down to get to the head bolts. Another thing that I've seen online is a wee trick that I found on a wee video was on the opposite side of these cams, on this specific part, there will be a code, a stamped code on either one, and when that code is at the bottom, that's when cylinder 1 is at top dead centre. And for those of you watching that might not know what top dead centre means, it's when the piston, it's always piston number 1 is at its highest point, it can't go any higher, and there's always a wee bit of float. There will be a point where you're turning the crank and the piston doesn't move, because that's when the conrod's going from this position to that position to then pull the piston back down. So when the piston doesn't move, that's called top dead centre. You can always try it. I normally use a wee bit of brake pipe to put down the bore of the spark plug hole, and then you can see when it stops moving. And like I just explained, these have got a good telltale sign on the camshafts themselves. So yeah, it's just a good wee thing to know. It's mental to think how far I've came in 2 days since taking the engine out to I've now stripped it down to where it's just the pistons and the crankshaft in it. Now that the cylinder head is off, I've noticed that I would say that these are all burning fine. 5 out of the 6 cylinders are burning fine, but we've got cylinder 4 is a wee bit black, so I don't know if that's oil or if I've got an injector issue. Even though that cylinder 4 is one of the cylinders that got a new injector in the last video, which is also the video where I blew the engine up pretty much. It's the only way I can think of describing it, even though it's just done the crankshaft and the bearing. I'm saying it's blown up. But we shall carry on. We've just got the crank to take out now, and then yeah, we'll be calling it a night. Now that the high pressure fuel pump's out the way, we had just took the centre nut out of there, and then there was 3 bolts through these holes here that bolt the pump to the actual block casing. And then the oil pump, it was the same again, a centre bolt there, these 2 bolts here bolting the back plate. I think from what I've seen online, the tensioner is actually built into this frame, and the only way you can get the chain off is by taking this nut off, and I think it splits the crankshaft in there. But I'm just going to leave it all together, and because next I'm going to go around, I'm going to take all of these outer bolts out first, which are just holding the bottom end casing on, and then once they're all out, we'll move on to the actual big end bolts, and then that will then let us take this casing right off, and then we should be able to just lift the crankshaft out. And yeah, well, oh no, I tell a lie, I need to finish taking these not cam caps, the crank caps off, and then hit the pistons out the bottom, and then yeah, we'll be able to get the crank out. That is one bare block now, pistons are all out, cranks out. I was worried in case the block was going to need replaced, but looking at the casing here, it's all fine. There's no heat spots, no damage to the bearings. There's a wee bit of damage there where someone's replaced the crank seal at some point and scratched it, but I'll just give that a wee clean up. Obviously there's the metal shavings in there, but these things can all be cleaned up, so I think we'll get away with using the original block. The pistons and the rods, on the other hand, I'm not too sure. This is cylinder 6. It's not too bad, apart from a wee scuff right there. So that, I don't think that would cause any issues though. But cylinder 5, the one that's had all the damage, is pretty badly scuffed, as you can see on both sides. So I don't think that we can reuse that. I don't know, I'll need to have a think about it if I'm happy enough reusing that. If not, I'll be getting a set of forged rods and a set of forged pistons possibly. I think this rod might be damaged because I can't actually get this bearing out of there. It's like welded itself on, so yeah, I don't know. I'll need to weigh up my options here, whether we forge it or we just try and get like for like replacement parts. I'm not sure. I need to weigh up my expenses here. And then as for the crank, this is what I was talking about earlier on. You can't actually get the oil pump pulley, the oil pump chain, sorry, off the sprocket. You need to split this nut, which then splits in there where my nail is. I don't know if it's picking up that gap there, but you just take this bit off, and then the chain will come off with itself. So I'll do that at a later date. But it's quite annoying because we do need a new crank. Even though majority of the big ends are fine, the crank here is all scored, as you would have seen earlier in the video. So I will need to look into getting a new crank. And unfortunately, fortunately for myself, this is all I'm going to do in this video, just stripping it all down and seeing what all we need. Like I said earlier, I'm away back to work for 2 weeks, so it'll give me time to make a list of parts, order everything that's needed. So yeah, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed today's video, and follow along for the N54 rebuild. Whether we go big power or whether I bottle it and just build it back to standard, follow along to find out. See you later on, guys. Cheers.